Welcome to Unbelievable Stories. Today's story is full of shocking twists and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in.
I can't believe this, Jessica said, her eyes widening in surprise. Why haven't you asked Michael about this trip? Do you truly believe he would be all right with it? Will he be unhappy, particularly because you will be the only married lady among a group of singles? You know Sophia and Hannah, they'll definitely start dating someone the minute we get in Los Angeles, Mark inquired earnestly. Like you'd ever say no, Rebecca shot back, her irritation palpable. I'm finished with Mr. Perfect. It's not that I want to cheat on him, I just need a break. My life is so boring, there's no excitement anymore. Jessica, a longtime acquaintance, shook her head in shock. Rebecca, take care. I don't want to watch your marriage break apart over a vacation. Marriage, Rebecca sneered. The relationship Michael and I share is far from passionate. We've been together for more than 20 years and I've never seen him be genuinely enthusiastic about anything. It's like living with Mr. White Bread. What is wrong with you, Rebecca? Jessica inquired, sounding anxious. I believed you loved him. Why so bitter? Michael is the kindest guy I know. Rebecca breathed deeply. I adore him, but I am bored of living with Mr. Perfect. He never gets offended, avoids confrontation, and refuses to stand up for himself. It's as if he lets others walk all over him. Remember the Valentine's Day celebration from 2 years ago? Mark Adams picked a fight with Michael, labeling him a coward. Michael simply walked away. He should have spoken out for himself, but he did not. I began to wonder if he really is a coward. Jessica saw Rebecca's sadness and reached out to console her. Speak to him, Rebecca. Try to make him assertive. I tried 1,000 times, Jessica. He just feels that violence doesn't solve anything. Rebecca forced a grin as she said, I get so angry with him, that's why I need to get away for a while. Besides, whatever occurs in Los Angeles remains in Los Angeles, right? Jessica forced a grin back, but she couldn't escape her concern for her friend's emotional condition. Michael Clark was undeniably a nice guy, standing at a little over 62 and weighing around 240 pounds. He maintained his trim and fit physique through early morning runs and regular workouts. His journey into adulthood began with him joining the Navy right out of high school due to financial constraints. Serving in the Navy for 4 years paved the way for him to realize his dream admission to college. After being admitted, Michael pursued a major in business administration, driven by a serious commitment to his studies. Despite being older than his classmates, Michael approached his education with determination, leaving behind the lively socializing of his Navy experience. In the early days of his junior year, Michael's life took a turn when he met Rebecca Robbins. Introduced by a friend in the student cafeteria, the three of them shared lunches, and Rebecca, who stood 55 tall, had a striking figure with short black hair and sparkling green eyes. Rebecca gave Michael her phone number and he contacted her, which led to several casual dates. Both seemed to be navigating the treacherous seas of a new relationship, but it didn't take long before they were an item. One evening, after supper, Michael drove the vehicle into a nearby garden and switched off the engine. Michael turned to Rebecca and started in a slow way. Rebecca, look, I want to talk to you. Just talk, she responded with a query in her eyes. Oh yes, see. We've been dating for a few months and I need to tell you how I feel. Rebecca just sat and waited, a glint in her eyes. This is not easy, damn it, Michael said, uncertain of himself. Rebecca, I love you and I want to marry you, he said, growing crimson in the face. Michael, how do you know? Rebecca muttered. We've never done anything except kiss and hold hands. How can you know whether you love me? Michael gazed at her, surprised. I respect you, Rebecca. I would never take advantage of you. Why would I treat you that way? He answered. Like what? She exclaimed. Why do you believe that closeness between two individuals who care about each other makes the lady a horrible person? I am not sure whether you love me. I believe you want a girl who is like Mother Teresa, not one with blood in her veins. Rebecca sat back, appearing irritated. Michael lifted his hands in an act of self-defense. Wait, Rebecca, wait, he begged. That's not true. It's just that I've been in the Navy for 4 years and the females we met weren't exactly college ready. I simply wanted to make sure I treated you properly. He paused and said again gently. I adore you, Rebecca Robbins. I want you to be my wife. I want to be with you for the rest of my life. Rebecca shed tears and grasped for him. "Oh, Michael, I adore you. You are the kindest, most caring, most compassionate person I have ever encountered. Yes, I will marry you." They kissed passionately and experienced an emotionally charged moment right there in the vehicle. Rebecca and Michael became closer after their intense time in the automobile, and they were engaged within a few months. They had a modest, personal wedding on a lovely Thursday in July, attended by close friends and family. The wedding took place in a charming park near their institution, and despite the basic setting, the day was wonderful. Rebecca looked stunning in a knee-length white dress, and Michael, dressed in a tailored suit, could not take his gaze away from her. Their early marriage was full of adventure and fresh beginnings. Rebecca finished her marketing degree and was happy to secure a job with a boutique design business where she was paid well. Meanwhile, Michael resumed his studies and they moved into a comfortable one-bedroom apartment near the university. They made it work, Rebecca juggling her new career, Michael working on his degree, and both of them making time for each other despite their hectic schedules. Michael secured a position as a junior accountant at a major agency after graduation. With both of their earnings, money were doable, and they soon discussed planning a family. A year later, Rebecca fell pregnant with their daughter, Emily. However, the pregnancy was not easy, and Rebecca had problems after birth, preventing her from having any further children. The news broke their hearts, but they were glad for Emily, whom they adored. Their careers expanded over time. Michael advanced to senior account manager, while Rebecca excelled in her job, eventually becoming a manager herself. They purchased a beautiful house in the suburbs with a private garden where Emily could play. Life seemed to be solid, even perfect at times, but their relationship began to change gradually. Michael became used to his solid job, concentrating on family and personal ambitions, while Rebecca's passion fueled her professional development. Rebecca opted to quit her employment before Emily's 14th birthday to become a full-time mother, which Michael wholeheartedly supported. For a while, this drew them closer together as a family, but in recent years, Rebecca's restlessness has emerged. Then came the news a vice presidency at Michael's firm had become vacant, and he applied for it with enthusiasm, confident in his credentials and years of experience. A few days later, his employer, Lucas Bennett, summoned him to his office. "Nice to meet you, Michael. Please take a seat," Ethan replied, motioning to the chair opposite him. "Can I get you a coffee?" "No thank you, Ethan." "I'm okay," Michael said, attempting to read his boss' demeanor, thinking the news may not be what he expected. "Let me be frank, Michael. I know you applied for the VP post and I have evaluated your work over the years. I know you are more than competent. But I'm afraid you won't get it." Michael suppressed his displeasure and maintained a steady tone. "Okay, Ethan, go ahead. Tell me why." Ethan leaned forward and spoke seriously. "It's just that you're so sweet, Michael. You are intelligent, courteous, and well-liked by everyone. However, in this capacity, you would need to be assertive, particularly during negotiations. I'm worried you don't have the killing instinct." Michael listened carefully, feeling both frustrated and understanding. He had never wanted to sacrifice his ideals, but he was also aware that his attitude may restrict his opportunities for advancement. After thanking Ethan and shaking his hand, Michael went to his office, contemplating how he would inform Rebecca. He knew she wouldn't be startled since she understood him so well. Back home, when he described the discussion, Rebecca sighed and waved her hand, as if she'd accepted his limits. She casually remarked that she and her pals, Jessica, Sophia, and Hannah, were arranging a ladies' weekend in Los Angeles. Michael's heart plummeted somewhat. He had planned to address the news during a peaceful weekend, but Rebecca seemed more interested in getting away from their daily routines. Michael paused, concerned about the journey. "Isn't everyone single?" "I'm just wondering whether this is acceptable, Rebecca." She switched off the television, irritated. "Yes, that is totally acceptable, Michael. I'll do anything I want," she said, retreating to their bedroom, leaving him with a sensation that things were slipping away. That Thursday, after Rebecca had left, Michael sat alone in the living room, struggling with the weight of it all. His thoughts turned to his time in the Navy, the guy he used to be, strong, competent, and fearless. Had worked hard to put behind the more passionate aspects of himself, but now he worried weather had softened too much. Michael's anxiety persisted throughout the weekend. A phone call to Rebecca's hotel verified his suspicions. No record of her stay existed. Michael hung up the phone, filled with dread. He attempted to dismiss the sensation, telling himself it was either a mix-up or something Rebecca hadn't said. But the gnawing discomfort persisted with him all weekend. He scarcely slept, and on Thursday night, he found himself wandering around their empty house, attempting to make sense of the widening gap between them. On Wednesday evening, as the hours passed, Michael's concern grew to frustration. He sat down with his laptop and, after a brief pause, composed an email to his old Navy friend Ryan Carter, who worked in private security. Even though it was late, Mike contacted him nearly immediately after receiving the message. "Michael, it's been a long time since we spoke. What up?" Michael took a big breath. "Hey, Mike. I apologize for calling you, but I need a favor. Rebecca is out of town with some pals and something doesn't seem right. Can you help me find out whether she is where she claims to be?" Mike's voice softened. "I have your back, Michael. Send me the information and I'll tell you what I can discover." By the next morning, Michael had received an email from Mike with the following message: "She is not staying where she claimed. I will keep searching. Stay strong, dude." As Michael read the email, a tight knot formed in his gut. The confirmation he dreaded but tried to avoid was in black and white. His thoughts raced with emotions: betrayal, incredulity, and a flash of rage. Had worked tirelessly for years to support Rebecca and keep their lives on track. He had remained cool and avoided controversy in the hopes of laying a firm basis for their marriage. But suddenly it seemed as if the same thing had kept back had been used against him. Rebecca returned that evening, exhausted, lugging her bag along. She gave Michael a contemptuous grin and went into the bedroom. "Hello, honey. Did you miss me?" she questioned with a false smile, not meeting his gaze. "We had a blast, but it's good to be home." Michael stayed sat, his gaze fixated on her, his words calm but chilly. "Sit down, Rebecca. I want to know everything about this blast you experienced." She hesitated for a second before turning to face him with a cautious gaze. Michael, in weary. "Can this wait? You aren't going anywhere, Rebecca." "I said sit down," he urged, his voice firm. She sat uncomfortably, thinking something was different about Michael, a resolve she had never seen before. "What has gotten into you?" she snapped. "I just came home, won't you give me a break?" Michael leaned forward, his voice gentle but strong. "Tell me about your weekend, Rebecca. Who were you with? What have you done? Where did you stay?" Rebecca paused, her face becoming pale. She averted her gaze, trying to gather her thoughts. "We simply relaxed, gambled, and had a few beers. Nothing serious, Michael. Just a harmless girls' trip." Michael lifted an eyebrow as he watched her intently. "Where have you stayed, Rebecca?" She fidgeted to escape his stare. "I told you about the motel. The Sheraton. Why are you probing me like this?" "Funny, because I called the hotel and they have no record of you or any of your friends staying there," he continued, allowing the words to linger in the air. Rebecca's face became white. She drew a weak breath, attempting to recover. "Michael, listen, I did not intend for you to find out this way. I just wanted some room. Honestly, it was innocuous. Just a weekend away. Please let it go." Michael's jaw clenched as he battled to contain his pain and rage. "Let it go. Rebecca, I've spent years trusting you, going above and beyond to be helpful and empathetic, even when things didn't seem right. I believed we had something genuine and substantial. And now you're lying to me about where you were and who you were with." Rebecca's eyes flooded with tears. "Please, Michael, it was a mistake. I was feeling restless and lonely. I did not intend for this to happen. I don't want to toss away what we've created together." Michael shook his head, feeling sorrowful rather than angry. "Rebecca, I'm not sure what's left to preserve. This isn't just about the weekend, you've been distant for a while. I tried to make things work and be patient. But I now see why you've been pushing me away." She hid her face in her hands and sobbed quietly, but Michael did not reach out to soothe her. For the first time in their marriage, he felt as if he could see her plainly, free of the filter of his own attempts to preserve the peace. He felt a profound feeling of loss, not just for her conduct, but also for the years he had spent in someone who no longer seemed to want to invest in him. "You'll sleep in the guest room tonight," he said gently. "I need time to consider what happens next. I'm not sure I can keep living like this." Rebecca did not answer, so he left her sitting there, alone with the weight of what she had done. The days after their discussion were filled with stillness. Michael moved into the guest room and maintained his distance, concentrating on work and spending time with Emily. He attempted to insulate his daughter from the strain at home, but even at 15, she could see something was wrong. One evening, Emily approached him as he sat alone in the kitchen, looking blankly into his coffee cup. "Dad, are you and Mom all right?" she inquired, her voice full of concern. Michael mustered a tiny grin and patted the seat next him. Emily, we're working through some problems. It's complicated. But I want you to know that no matter what happens, we both adore you more than anything. Emily nodded, her eyes welling with tears. I just don't want you to be sad, Dad. He gripped her fiercely, his anguish amplified by her anxiety. It'll be fine, sweetheart. Do not worry. After Emily had gone to bed, Michael sat alone, battling with his thoughts. He had attempted to let go of the betrayal, but the sorrow and mistrust remained like an open sore. He realized that their marriage was beyond salvaging. Rebecca's actions were more than simply a mistake, they were an indication of something fundamentally wrong between them. He realized he needed to make a choice, not just for himself, but also for Emily. The following morning, Michael requested Rebecca to join him in the living room. She seemed fatigued, as if the previous week had sapped her of vitality, yet her face remained stubborn. Rebecca, I've been thinking about this a lot, Michael said calmly. This is not functioning. We can't keep pretending that everything is good. Rebecca turned aside, holding back tears. I understand, Michael. I'm not sure why I did what I did. I felt lonely and restless. I thought some space would help, but I ended up making everything worse. Michael nodded, accepting her comments but not justifying them. I am aware that we both contributed to this. But the trust has been destroyed, Rebecca. And I don't believe we can reconstruct it. I want a divorce. Rebecca's face collapsed and her defiance faded as she finally broke down. Please, Michael, do not do this. I do not want to lose you. I realize I screwed up, but I can't fathom my life without you. Her comments wounded, but Michael stood firm. I can't be in a marriage where I'm always wondering, Rebecca. I'm always feeling like I'm not enough. This isn't good for any of us, and it's especially unfair to Emily. We both deserve the opportunity to pursue happiness, even if it means being apart. Rebecca nodded slowly and wiped her eyes. You're right, she whispered. Maybe this is for the best. They resolved to be amicable for Emily's sake. Michael would remain in the home until a more permanent solution could be found, and they would share custody of Emily. As they spoke about the arrangements, he could feel the finality sink in, a combination of melancholy, relief, and a glimmer of optimism for the future. In the weeks that followed, Michael immersed himself into his job, focusing his energies on the company he had just launched with his assistant, Rachel. The new company succeeded, and Rachel's experience as Director of Human Resources proved useful. Together, they formed a solid team and established a reputation for honesty and professionalism. Michael felt pleasure in his firm, which provided him with a feeling of purpose and stability that had previously been lacking in his personal life. The divorce went peacefully, with both Michael and Rebecca remaining friendly. Rebecca moved into a nearby apartment, and they set up a co-parenting plan that enabled Emily to spend time with both of them. Despite everything, Michael was glad that they were able to prioritize Emily's well-being during the procedure. Rachel knocked on Michael's office door one day as he was finishing off papers there. Hey, Michael, she remarked, entering with a kind grin. I simply wanted to thank you for this chance. Working with you has been fantastic, and I am really confident in what we are doing. Michael smiled back, pleased for her commitment. Thank you, Rachel. I could not have done this without you. Really. They experienced a moment of mutual respect, and a delicate understanding developed between them. Rachel had been a constant presence at one of the most difficult moments in his life, and he was starting to feel a feeling of gratitude for her that went beyond professional respect. Months passed, and Michael found himself settling into his new life. He and Emily fell into a comfortable routine, and his business expanded. He even began reconnecting with former pals, notably Mike, who remained a dependable confidant. Though he still felt lonely, he was learning to fill the void with purpose and meaningful connections. One evening, while working late, he and Rachel found themselves swapping anecdotes about their life and previous experiences. Rachel's laughing was infectious, and Michael began to open himself to her in ways he hadn't done with anyone else since Rebecca. Rachel stared at him with a loving and thoughtful face as their chat came to an end. Michael, I just wanted you to know that you are one of the strongest persons I've ever encountered. What you've gone through is not easy. But you handled it so gracefully. Michael felt a flush of gratitude for her remarks. Thank you, Rachel. That means a lot. They held each other's side for a minute, an unsaid bond formed between them. He felt a stirring of something unexpected, hope, the prospect of a fresh beginning. Michael eventually recognized he was ready to go ahead. His life had changed, but it had become richer as a result of perseverance and progress. He had Emily, a successful company, and a renewed feeling of purpose. And maybe, just maybe, he had the opportunity to pursue something more with someone who actually understood him. Michael strolled out into the cool evening air after closing his office that night, a weight off his shoulders. He had no idea what the future contained, but for the first time in a long time, he felt prepared to face it, stronger, wiser, and open to whatever came next. A few months later, Michael's life had fallen into a satisfying pattern. His nights with Emily were filled with laughter and love, and his workdays were fulfilling as he worked to expand his firm. He and Rachel had gotten closer, and their relationship seemed real and unforced. Rachel knocked on his office door on Thursday as he was finishing up for the day, bringing a little present package wrapped in dark blue paper. "What's this?" he inquired, shocked. Rachel smiled and laid the gift on his desk. "Open it and find out." He opened it to see an exquisite leather diary imprinted with his initials. Rachel wrote a little letter inside the inside cover for the voyage ahead, "May it be everything you dreamed for." He gazed up at her, touched. "Thank you, Rachel. This means a lot. After all you've gone through, I thought it would be wonderful to have a place where you could scribble down ideas, recollections, or just thoughts. Putting things on paper can help them become more clear," she remarked gently. Their hands lingered momentarily as he accepted the diary, conveying an unsaid agreement via their shared look. Michael couldn't deny the emotions he was developing for Sarah. Something about the simplicity of their time together seemed right. She was there for him when he needed it the most, and she did not demand anything in return. Later that evening, as Michael and Emily sat on his living room sofa, she glanced up from her schoolwork with a pensive face. "Are you happy, Dad?" Michael grinned and placed his arm around her. "I am, Emily. I'm happier than I have been in a long time." "Good," she replied, cuddling in closer. "You deserved it. Rachel is also really lovely. I like her." Michael laughed as his cheeks warmed. "She's nice, isn't she?" Emily smiled, interpreting more into his tone than he meant. "Maybe you should ask her out sometime," she said, pushing him lightly. He shook his head and laughed, but the notion persisted. That weekend, Michael reflected on what he desired, understanding that he was now ready to take a step toward something new. He felt at peace with his past and truly excited about the future, which may involve Rachel. The next Monday, after a fruitful day, Michael waited for Rachel as she packed her belongings to depart. "Hey, Rachel," he murmured, little hesitant. "Would you want to have supper with me? Outside of work, that is." Rachel's eyes lighted up with astonishment, and a grin made his pulse accelerate. "I'd love that, Michael." Their first supper together was informal, with plenty of laughing and old and new tales shared. They then went down the shore, discussing life, goals, and future plans. There was no urgency, just a sense of comfort and mutual understanding. As the weeks progressed into months, their connection grew organically, providing Michael a pleasure and simplicity he hadn't known he needed. Rachel supported him in ways that seemed natural, and together they created a life full of shared ideals, respect, and affection. Michael's life changed in ways he had never believed imaginable. He and Emily flourished in their routines, and the firm grew steadily with Rachel at his side. They planned trips, held meals for friends, and even discussed the idea of a future together. Years passed, and Michael often pondered on the route that led him here. The challenges, losses, and bitter lessons had eventually led to something beautiful, a life in which he was not only at peace, but also really happy. He no longer felt defined by his history or who he previously was. Instead, he accepted each day as it came, thankful for the love, development, and optimism that had enriched his life. Michael knew he was in the right place as he stood in the doorway of the house one calm evening, watching Rachel and Emily giggle together in the kitchen. He grinned, knowing that, despite adversity and grief, life has a way of delivering you just where you belong. Michael and Rachel's connection became stronger over the following year, merging in perfectly with his life with Emily. Their house became a haven of fun, support, and love. Rachel had naturally become Emily's close family friend, and Michael watched as his daughter's regard and affection for Rachel increased over time. Emily had grown to refer to her as Aunt Rachel with love, and Rachel would often join in on family dinners and weekend outings, enriching each moment. Michael, Rachel, and Emily went hiking near the lake on Thursday. It was a chilly autumn day, the air filled with the earthy aroma of fallen leaves, and the woods were alive with autumnal hues. Emily glanced to Michael with a serious expression as they stood on a rocky overlook. "Dad," she continued, a bit sheepishly, "have you ever considered marrying Rachel?" Michael shared an astonished gaze with Rachel, who smiled softly in encouragement. He returned to Emily, selecting his words carefully. I think about it sometimes, yes, he said, reaching for Rachel's hand. We both want to make sure it's the best moment for all of us. But I'll tell you this, I adore Rachel and would love to have her as a member of our family. Emily smiled, her face lit up. I would enjoy that, too, Dad. She makes you happy. Rachel clasped his hand, her eyes full of passion. As they stood there, staring out over the lake, Michael was overwhelmed with appreciation. Had been on a long, twisting route to this point, and everything seemed to have finally come together. A few months later, on a chilly winter evening, Michael decided it was time. He arranged a peaceful evening at home, knowing that it would be most authentic for both of them. He called Rachel over and prepared a lovely meal by the fireside. Michael's anxiety relaxed as they ate and spoke calmly about their future. After supper, he grabbed her hand and led her to sit alongside him on the sofa. He reached into his pocket and took out a little velvet box. Rachel, he continued, his voice overflowing with passion, meeting you has altered everything for me. You were there for me when I needed you the most, and now I can't picture life without you. You are more than just my spouse, you are also my best friend. Will you marry me? Rachel's eyes welled up with tears and her grin broadened as she gazed into his. Yes, Michael. 1,000 times, yes. They hugged, laughing blending with delighted tears as Michael slid the ring on her finger. Emily, who had been quietly observing from the kitchen doorway, raced into the room and hugged them both firmly. Their wedding was small and personal, taking place on a lovely spring day at the same clifftop overlook where Michael and Emily had previously discussed their future. With close friends, family, and Emily at their sides, Michael and Rachel exchanged vows that honored not just their love but also the journey that had brought them there. As they rejoiced, Michael realized how far he had come, from being defined by failure and misery to having a new life, a new family, and a newfound feeling of optimism. It wasn't the life he had pictured, but it was better than he could have dreamed for. He had discovered love and happiness again, and with Rachel at his side, he was ready to face the years ahead. In the months that followed their wedding, Michael and Rachel fell into a comfortable and joyous routine. They moved into a pleasant, big house together, which became a haven for their tiny family. Emily, now a young adult, was doing well in school and aspired to work in environmental science, inspired by the treks and outdoor experiences she'd experienced with her father and Rachel. Rachel and Michael's love for each other grew stronger, and they shared the quiet moments of satisfaction that come with real partnership. They both liked the basic rhythms of family life: weekend breakfasts at the kitchen island, game evenings when Emily would challenge them both to a card game, and Wednesday afternoons spent gardening or exploring neighboring trails. Their house was filled with love, laughter, and a feeling of hard-earned calm. After Emily had gone to bed, Michael and Rachel sat on the back porch, covered in blankets, and watched the stars. The air was chilly, and the night was still save for the odd rustling of leaves. Michael stared at Rachel with a full heart. I never imagined I'd feel this way again, he said quietly. Rachel, you have brought so much pleasure and tranquility into my life. You've taught me what love really looks like. Rachel smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. I believe we were supposed to discover each other, Michael. All the twists and turns brought us here. As they sat in comfortable stillness, Michael couldn't help but think about how much he had changed. Had learned to trust again, to be vulnerable, and to fully accept love. He no longer felt plagued by the past or the agony of what had lost. Instead, he was appreciative for the route that led him to this point. Michael's firm grew over time, and Rachel became not just his life partner but also a key contributor to the company's success. They worked together to create a work climate that emphasized honesty, respect, and integrity, ideals that Michael had followed from the beginning. Their reputation in the business grew, and the firm expanded into other sectors, giving them a feeling of purpose and success. One summer, they decided to take a family vacation to the mountains. The week was packed with lengthy treks, campfire storytelling, and stargazing. Emily smiled warmly at them as they sat by the fire on their final night. You know, she remarked, her voice full with passion, I'm very thankful to both of you. You've taught me what true love looks like, not only the easy bits, but also the fortitude required to persevere. I'd like to do that someday. Rachel moved across to take Emily's hand. You will, Emily. And when you do, every obstacle you face will be worthwhile. Michael gazed at the two most important persons in his life and felt an overwhelming sense of pride and affection. Had found his way through the darkness, realizing that life's most difficult times may lead to the most promising new beginnings. Michael had a deep sense of serenity as they sat around the campfire, laughing booming through the night. He was no longer characterized by previous wounds or regrets. Instead, he was a spouse, father, friend, and guy who had grown to appreciate life's beauty and complexity. Looking at Rachel's glowing face and Emily's cheerful grin, he realized he had finally arrived at a place of contentment and satisfaction, a place he could call home in every meaning of the term. And for the rest of his life, had carried that love with him, cherishing each moment and understanding how valuable it actually was. Michael, Rachel, and Emily's lives continued to flourish throughout the years. Their family grew closer as they faced life's problems together and made memories that bonded them even more as a unit. Emily graduated with honors and went on to university, where she studied environmental science, making her parents pleased with each accomplishment. With Emily now living on college, Michael and Rachel had more time to pursue new activities as a pair. They went on a trip together, seeing sights they'd both wanted to see for years. From Switzerland's foggy Alps to Greece's pristine beaches, each journey provided fresh tales and unique experiences that strengthened their love. They trekked difficult routes, tasted new delicacies, and explored little communities off the usual path, enjoying every minute together. Rachel smiled reflectively at Michael one evening as she looked out over the sweeping vineyards of Tuscany. "You know, it's weird to reflect on how we got here. All the anguish and tribulations led us to today. I'm not sure I would have comprehended genuine love if I hadn't gone through this trip." Michael clasped her hand, his eyes filled with understanding and thanks. "I feel the same way. I didn't expect to feel this way again, this feeling of purpose and satisfaction. You taught me to open my heart anew." As they sat beneath the starry sky, they toasted to the life they'd established and the many years ahead of them. Their love, founded on perseverance and understanding, became stronger over time. They found delight in both simple moments at home and remarkable ones abroad, cherishing each day with a mutual devotion to one another. Back home, Michael's firm continued to thrive, due in large part to Rachel's vital services. As Director of Human Resources, she had an instinctive ability to foster a friendly, collaborative atmosphere that reflected the values she and Michael shared. Their employees were not simply co-workers, they were family. As the firm grew, Michael and Rachel made it a point to create a culture in which everyone felt respected, reflecting the love and strength that characterized their partnership. Then, on a bright fall day, Michael got an unexpected letter. It came from Rebecca, his ex-wife. She acknowledged her sadness and apologized for the decisions that had led to their separation. The letter was brief, but heartfelt, recognizing the anguish they'd both experienced. Michael read it deliberately, enjoying the conclusion it provided to a chapter he had long ago gone beyond. When he shared the letter with Rachel that evening, she held his hand and smiled gently. "You deserve peace, Michael, and I'm glad you have it." Michael nodded, deeply happy. His earlier wounds had healed, and he could now reflect on that period with compassion rather than bitterness. Rachel's presence had helped him reconstruct his life from the ground up, and he now felt completely entire. In the years that followed, as they saw Emily graduate and begin her own profession, Michael and Rachel grew old together, navigating each stage of life with grace and fun. Their house remained a source of affection, where friends and family congregated, and Emily often returned with tales about her own travels. Rachel placed her head on Michael's shoulder one evening as they sat on their veranda, enjoying a lovely sunset. "We have had a lovely life, haven't we?" she whispered. Michael placed his arm around her, his heart overflowing. "Yes, we did. And things only get better from here." They sat in the golden glow of evening, hand in hand, relishing the simple bliss they had discovered together. Their narrative was about tenacity, development, and a love that had been tested and deepened over time. In that moment, Michael knew without a doubt that he had discovered the life he had always desired, a life full of love, purpose, and, most significantly, the tranquility of knowing he was exactly where he belonged. Thank you for watching. What aspects of Michael and Rachel's trip inspired you the most? Please share in the comments and subscribe for more inspirational tales.